Yeah, so now the guy now said, you fuck up, but today your cup don't full. As if to say, oh, guy, you've messed up a lot. Now, I have to get this, over with. So the guy like, do your worst. What do you feel? Do the next thing we realized was a gunshot. Immediately he pulled out his gun right there on the table and shot the guy who was sitting just right one, two, just like 2 seats away from me. But you see, Africans, we have that Odeshi thing going on. He was shot. He got hurt, but he was supposed to die from the gunshot. But he only injured. He didn't die, but he was shot, and it escalated from there. Where that guy now had to run back to the car we came with. The car I was seated in, I didn't know the equipment there were that much. Not like I don't know that we carry equipment and stuff. You know, brought out a very big axe, and a machete. He didn't even touch his gun, and rushed up to the guy and stuff, and they chopped him right there.
All right. How would you describe your childhood growing up?
Yeah, it was awesome growing up. At least I came from an average home where,
Both parents.
yeah,
Both parents were.
both parents, they were never divorced. They've always been together until, it was their time, and they are no more today. Yeah, so came from that family where, a polygamous family to be precise. I have a lot of siblings apart from my mother's side. So, yeah, yeah,
No,
okay,
right.
okay,
Right,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah,
Um. Okay.
yeah.
What would you say? What kind of child were you? Were you? Would you say rebellious?
Okay,
Kind of child?
I grew up being what, maybe every other Nigerian would say Ajepako, because I'm not 100% Ajebota, I'm not 100% Bako. So if you fuse the two of them, it's called Ajepako, in the sense that it wasn't too rosy, but I was living an average life where at least most of the things you needed around were affordable. Yeah, so I was not a rebellious kid. I grew up in a gospel family, in a Christian family, sorry. So I was never rebellious. I was a good kid. In fact, the last born of my family, so I was always being the baby of the house, and I got to learn a lot from my elder ones, so, but I can't remember me being rebellious at all, or any other kind of child. I was always a good child until growing up, and getting to face peer pressure, you know, while in primary school, secondary school, and university. So, of course, no one grows up to stay the same, even though we're not chameleons, though. But yes, we never change.
Okay. So tell me a bit more about this peer pressure, primary school, peer pressure, and
Yeah.
build up into what kind of teenager you became.
Okay. Peer pressure, primary school to start with, was more like at home. If I was to be, if I was to maybe say, don't go out, come back at this time, make sure you do this, make sure you don't do that, and I get to do exactly what I'm told to do. I was peer pressured in school because I started mixing up with other kids who were not having the same orientation with me. So I got to, get a little bit stubborn, so to speak. because I started realizing that even while growing up, I started doing things that were not taught from home. Like for example, maybe I'm trying to think about the best example as of that age. That's what I'm saying. Trying to think of a very good example. Okay, maybe like come, sit down here. Make sure that you don't do this, you don't do that. Have you had your tea or something? Have you read your books and all of that? I make sure that I do all of that. But by the time I got mixed up with other kids and I became too playful, for example, as of that age, I didn't get to do a whole lot of that again. That's an you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're in secondary school. Would you say your affiliation with gang life started in secondary school? Around what time did it start? And that would lead us into what led to that track in the first place?
Gang life. To me, growing up was gang already. Growing up was gang already, because I remember, like where you have your friends. You have this friend, that friend, this friend in this class, and some other guy in the next class. Maybe he's a bully. He has bullied me or bullied one of my friends, and we're like, oh boy, look, this guy has been bullying us for long. We can't stand this anymore. We have to find a way to stop this guy. Maybe snatch his lunchbox. Just getting pissed off. Because then we couldn't fight. Do the street fight or anything of that sort. So, but we had to find a way of stopping that kind of thing. So it was gang already. Because ganging means it's more than one person going against another person or other group of people, so to speak. So growing up was gang, but gang, like, because I had friends. I've always been a very social person. I've never grown up alone. I've always grown up with friends, because I like to be in the company of friends. I'm a very social person, and it all started from my childhood. I always hang around my friends, either doing music, fine arts, or something. So, but we're always together in one way or the other, because I love playing football too. So there's no way I could do without ganging. Ganging didn't necessarily mean ganging up to excuse me, didn't necessarily mean ganging up to shoot, to kill, or do things of that sort. But ganging up for some reason, like maybe football, maybe ganging up to go for music rehearsals, maybe ganging up to go for debates or something. So for me, growing up was always gang, until the other side of gang, So growing up was gang.
So when did you get into the streets? When did you get real?
Okay. Now, ganging became more real in the university. Where it had to be more like, look, oh boy, if join this thing, be big boy, that kind of thing. So everyone wanted to be a member of the gang, irrespective. I mean, with all due respect to the rest of the gangs, and everybody wanted to be like, man, it was a trendy thing. So everybody wanted to be a member of a gang, whichever gang it was, for various reasons, So, but for me, ganging in the university was not what a whole lot of other people thought it was. Ganging for me was, okay, I've got your back, you've got my back, you're my friend, we could share, we could be confidants, I can confide in you, you confide in me. I tell you things I wouldn't tell anyone else ordinarily, but I can tell you, and if you have a problem, you tell me, and if there's a way I can help you out, I help you out, So ganging for me in the university wasn't necessarily, that kind of gang where you must go out and shoot. Because if speaking of gang, even, you know, like if we want to look at what is called now, like cult, cultism, if we're looking at the dictionary definition of a cult, even the military is a cult, the church is a cult, which means that it's a group of people coming to agree for to share a common goal, you know, or fight for a common cause. You know, okay, what would anyone else say, for example, about the Fulanis or the Boko Harams who come together for such things? I'm just giving a quick example. So, well, ganging for me in the university.
So, how did you, when you decided it was cool and that's what you wanted to do, um, how did you get, was there somebody who, was it like an OG who led you in or walk us through that?
Yeah. With all due respect, I wouldn't like to name names particularly, but yeah, of course, there's always that one person who gets to get you in. You know, like you look like probably like your mentor. You know, for me, I didn't really have someone who said, "Let's gang." You know, join. Let's do this. Cause what I saw in the university and what made me, you know, like be among the gang I was more like the aims and the objectives of the gang, you know, gang, you know, the aims and objectives, the ethics and aesthetics of what it was, because it was more of freedom fighting. It was, you know, it was more of being your brother's keeper, you know, and it was more of being truthful to each other and not just, you know, members of the gang alone. Because I won't just have my brother's back because we're a gang, you know. If someone else, say instance for anybody else now, is being in trouble and I happen to pass around and I see that there's someone who is being caught up in a mess and I'm in a position to help as a member of the gang, which, you know, I gang with, I can always say, no, I don't think this is cool. Please, guys, how amicably can we settle this, you know, and until there's maybe any other ulterior motive that might lead to getting physical or some stuff like that. Else, it's not really, my gang has nothing to do with always getting physical or trying to shoot people or stuff like that, you know.
Okay. As best as you can, without necessarily mentioning names,
Okay.
can you tell us what gang you're affiliated with? And do you remember the year? Do you remember the how you joined? Was there a ceremony? Was there? How did you become a certified member?
It's that's really deep. That's really deep. But just like I said, not naming names necessarily. But it's been like at least over a decade since I ganged up in the university. And of course, there's no gang that gangs you up without a ceremony. It was a long process, but first and foremost, um, getting to where you know the ceremonial ground where you know everything was being done, where the initiations were being done. It was a little bit terrifying, not knowing the outcome of what you know you were going for. You know, being blindfolded, you get me, going in where you do not you ordinarily you wouldn't have want to go at that hour of the day. There was this building, deep down. I think it was like behind the school hostel. That's university now, not dormitory, hostel. Big room. We're all there, and then as new members coming in, they will not never ever tell you what you're expecting, and you just going. Most definitely, you're just going because you know that you're going to become. You don't know how it's going to be when you get there. You don't know what's going on. So you're already blindfolded. You're good. We left where we were at about say maybe around 8:30. That was evening towards the night. And all I can remember is we stayed there until the break of the dawn. But before the break of the dawn, while we got there, it was really scary, with the drums. I told you, it's Africanism is blackism, so it's tradition. So everything going on was traditional, and to me, for the first time, it was scary because it was quiet with the sounds, the chants, all that thundering things. I can't maybe not just say them just like that, but chanting and saying that all that dance thing, the African thing, it feels like Tales by Moonlight, but the scary version, like having to be all around each other. But then the scariest thing for me was excuse me, when someone said, "Bring them, come this side," make them line up for here like this, all of them, make them come reach, and stuff. And I'm like, what? Bring them, come this side, come line up. I didn't know what to expect, so I'm just thinking, okay, so today is the D-Day. And someone even actually made the mention that today we will slaughter them, that kind of thing. So they put a little fear in me. It was really terrifying. Yeah. It was really, really terrifying. I didn't know what to expect. It was crazy. A lot of people jumping, shouting, drums beating, hearing different voices. You couldn't tell who is who, what was going on, what's next to happen, and then like I said, it's a process. It's a process. So it kept going from one step to the other, from the bring them, come, make them join line, to the okay, it's time for this one, where I come this side, they bring you to this side, take you to one place, you meet this one, they access you, they look at you, open your blinds. Am I right? Because we're blindfolded and stuff. They bring you to one side, open up the blinds, and stuff, and look at you very well, then take you to that room. Once you get to that room, they ask you a few questions, and if your answers to those questions are not what they are expecting, you're staying in that room. But if because they want to know how your mind state, if you're really man enough for what you have come for. So there are certain questions maybe I might not say them, but they just ask. You should know why. You have an idea of what I'm saying, but maybe you don't know exactly what I'm saying. But unfortunately, I can't say exactly what they said. But this is what happened. While being blindfolded, they take you to that room, open up your blinds, look at you, ask you the questions they need to ask you, access you, and if your answers are okay for them, you go to the other room. And once you get to the other room, that is when you go down. Now they now talk, do what they need to do, then do the needful. In that room, once they are done in that room, that is when they say, okay, from now, you are now a new member. These are the rules we are giving you from here now onwards. From this process that you have passed through, you have now become a member. And if you break the rules, we will come for you. But if you do not break the rules, we are still with you. But remember that you're always your brother's keeper. You must fight for, your brother, freedom, stuff. So, that's it.
What did you think you're going to gain getting out of this?
Okay. it's a fraternity, brotherhood, you know. So for me, knowing the aims and the objective, which means that we have to arrive at being freedom fighters, we have to arrive at being our brother's keeper, which means also that we have to be liberated from every other aspect of oppression, and then yeah.
Why is the oppression from who exactly now?
Well, oppression comes from every other corner. It mustn't necessarily be a rival, you know. Oppressions come from, for example, a very recent example even, you know, we've all been in the know of the oppression of the SARS people, which, you know, the Nigerians couldn't take it anymore and they had to bring up the end SARS thing, you know, that kind of movement. So, yeah, oppression doesn't mean you're being necessarily oppressed by a rival. It's not just about, we have nothing to do with supremacy, you know, so we don't always want to show that this is who we are and we must be seen, we must be known. No. So, oppression can come from any angle. It could come from the government, oppression can come from the rivals, you know, and speaking of the government, which, you know, the SARS, etc., you know, like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit forward.
Okay.
Now you're ganged up, you belong to this fraternity. What are some of the perks that come with it? What was its joy? What was it like? What was the high of it? What were the good sides of it? Let's put it that way.
Okay, the good sides of it,
For you personally.
for me personally, was that I knew that I could be fought for, not necessarily physically, not ganging up to go and fight some other guy or some other group for my sake, but I always know that whenever I'm in need of something, maybe in school, where maybe your siblings, your parents, or, you know, they are not just right there for you real quick. You're rest assured that your brothers are there for you. I've seen that over and over and over. But trust me, there is no advantage without disadvantage. There's nothing that is sweet that isn't bitter. So, but yes, speaking of that, trust me, I've seen them come through for me here and there. I've had situations where I needed to I needed to have certain things done financially. They came through for me. I've had, you know, situations where even when it had to get physical, they were there for me, as if to say, look, you don't necessarily have to fight this guy, but if he keeps coming, then we'll have to do something about it. I've had this kind of situations like, look, guy, maybe only you deal, you know, that kind of thing.
Give us one example of a time where something like a scenario where this played out.
Okay, good. Now, my parents were never there when I had an issue with a lecturer, particularly, who thought I was going out with his babe, his chick, his side chick, because he was a married man, you know. So he deliberately made me fail that course, particularly over and over, you know, back to back. So I tried to meet him one-on-one and talk and stuff, but it never worked. I've had them come and say, come, Olga, please, so this guy is like your younger brother. I remember some guy, I wouldn't just call his name, but he has always, may his soul rest in peace, he has always been like an elder brother even since then, you know, who came up to say, come, Olga, I beg now, this guy is like your younger brother, but look at what you're doing to him. You're a married man, and that lady is your side chick, and look, you are doing this to this young man as if you don't have a younger brother, or something, or he doesn't have anyone to come forward for him. Please, sir, with all due respect, we deem fit that please you should let the young man pass. If he doesn't pass by the marks required, it is understood. But if there's any other motive, please, sir, it shouldn't be done so. I've had that kind of case. I've had a case where
And he agreed?
he did. He did. Why he did, for me, why he did is I don't think that my class rep would have been able to walk up to him and tell him, okay, I'm your class rep, oh," you know.
Did he know who was talking to him?
He did know the people talking to him.
So he was a bit intimidated then?
Yeah, well, if you say intimidated, what would you say was happening to me? If he was intimidated.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We were saying the same thing.
Okay, good. Now, so I'm just saying. So, well, if he was intimidated, then I don't know what else to say because there's no other word for me to use for now. But if he was intimidated, then well, so be it, you know, to some large extent, because what he was doing to me, he didn't want me to graduate from that school then by what he was doing, because he kept on holding me back on that paper back to back. You know, the tests, the assignments, everything, you know, it was too obvious. That's by the way. Now, I was telling you something. I've had another situation in school where it was financial. I was off campus and I had to pay for my rent. And the truth of the matter is, then, you know, getting all jiggy and everything, of course, yeah, I spent the money I had saved for the rent, and it was during this exam period and I needed to be stable, but I had no place to stay. So they all came together and asked me how much was the money for the rent. As of then, it was about 75k, you know. So they had to put it together. They brought about 65k for me. I had to look for just 10k to make it up on pay. It might not sound very big, but it was big for me then, you know. So, and many others I can't just recall quickly, but these few ones, I hope that they answer your question, you know, somehow.
Did you ever have to be there for somebody?
Yes, myself.
Either financially or muscle wise or any other way wise?
Oh yes, I've never been the muscle type, because I was always the entertainer. I've always been the entertainer. Because even in the military, you have those who are in the admin. You have those who are engineers, doctors, and those who go to the war front. So the gang was more like a paramilitary. So it had those kind of people too. And I was one of the people who were like more like, okay, in the gang, I'm in the band. You know, not like in the gang, I'm in the war front. You know, so yeah, I came through for a lot of people now. Yeah, I remember I came through for a lot of people where I had to also contribute some monies, where I had to, you know, be there for them morally. Like, look, bro, this is not over yet. I know you're going through a hard time, but cheer up, gear up, stay strong. Look, I got you. You know, I'll always come through however, whenever I can. He didn't necessarily have to me, you know, flexing my muscles for him. Like, look, I'm fighting for you. Who's trying? I have to fight, you know, and stuff. So it never necessarily had to be that way. But I came through for a lot of people too.
Okay. So you said how the gang is like a paramilitary. So did you have a rank or a position? Yeah.
Particularly, no, because I wasn't where I would have been to actually have a rank, because I was excuse me, I was more, like I said earlier, I was more of the entertainer type of you know, guy in the gang. I was in the band. So there was actually, I wasn't actually where I would have been to, you know, get around. That's to say, you know, my levels of attending all the meetings were limited, you know, and whatever criteria that needed to give me that rank, I was not around the corridors of such a place to actually have a rank. So but yes, there are ranks in it. Yeah.
Okay. So, saying at what point what was the first instance where you started to see things that didn't sit well with you?
Okay. Like I was trying to then there's a place in the campus that was or is, I don't know, I've lived there for a bit now, but it was called Coke Village, where they sell soft drinks and snacks and stuff, and you play snooker, just have little fun, play chess. So we're all there together, and there were few other rivals around, and I came there. I was supposed to have a show that evening. The stage was set. We're mic checking and stuff, and a little argument sparked up. Normally, it would have been the kind of argument where, we say, no, I don't like this, I don't like that, why are you doing this? I'm not cool with this and stuff, and you have, normal mano kind of situation. But it went deeper than that when I saw that one of my friend who was very close to me, who was in that argument, all of a sudden, because I was divided a little bit, from the stage back to where we were all seated, So all of a sudden, while the argument was getting heated, and I realized that my friend picked up a bottle of Coke, and engaged the other rival, and right there and then the other guy brought out a gun. Before I knew what was happening, my friend was shot, and he started bleeding right in front of me. He got shot, on his neck, right here. He started bleeding, so blood pumping. So for me, it was a gross sight, and it was a sight. It was an eyesore. It was something I thought. I know things happen like that, but I've never seen it at a close range, and I never bargained for it, as if to say, I know I'm ganging, but it doesn't have to get to this, but this is what it is right now. Just in a bit, just in a few seconds, and I see someone who we've been in the same room, going to the same lectures, I just see him shot, and it's just as if it's just a normal thing, but for me it wasn't a normal thing because it was deeper than what I thought. And then at that moment, I definitely had a second thought. I'm like, my God. So if this can happen to this guy, who is my friend, in the same room, the same lecture hall, who just got shot and is bleeding, and he died in front of me because he didn't make it to the hospital. He didn't get to make it to the hospital. So I'm like, oh, this can get even more heated, and who knows? No one is praying for, but it also means that I might just be the next victim. And if not me, there's someone who is next to me, or the other person right there. So at that moment for me, that's when I knew it was real. It was deeper than just being deep, and it definitely gave me a second thought, knowing fully well that this wasn't supposed to be the way, I thought it should have been, because for me alone, I thought, we can always have arguments, and have them settled amicably, but it was more than that. And at that point, I was terrified. At that point, I had a second thought. At that point, I had regrets. Excuse me. Rushing in me. I'm like, God, so I can also just get shot like this, and that would be the end of it. So.
Just cough. Okay. So after witnessing your friend getting shot,
yeah,
how did you handle that? You're full of regrets. You So the reality of it, what were the next few steps you took?
Yeah, the next few steps I took was first and foremost to take a break from the gang. You know, I had to slow down with the mingling, always being with, because it was really terrifying. I didn't know what next was coming. I didn't know if I was going to be the next person. So I just had to take a break from the gang, you know, and
Can you just take a break? Can you stop whenever you feel like? Is that the way it's set up?
well, to some large extent, yes, because it's not as if anyone is going to come and say, "We don't see you again. Why are you not coming to where we are? You're not ganging anymore." You know, once they realize that you're not ganging anymore, they
So
just
there are no
leave.
consequences to leaving.
Excuse me. Yeah. No consequences to leaving. The only consequence, which isn't in the constitution of the gang, is just to say, oh, you're no more, ganging with us. So it means you're solo ganging. You're on your own now. So that means if we're meeting, you're not meeting with us. If you have a problem, it's your problem. Our problem is now our problem. So that means, you've actually broke the first rule, which says, be your brother's keeper. So you're no longer watching your brother's back, and your brothers won't also watch your back, as if to say, okay, come on, since you're no more here, you're no more ganging, you're on your own. Just stay on your own. There will be no form of any open excommunication, but you will get to know that there is that excommunication going on, because you find out that most of the rest of the gang won't visit you anymore. They won't hang out with you anymore. Wherever you guys meet, you're always on your own, so they don't have to come to where you are. And if you're being effed up anywhere, if you're being in trouble anywhere, you're on your own. They might just, it depends on what kind of trouble. You can get in any kind of trouble, and they just let it slide. They have nothing to do with you anymore.
Or it's not like you just took a break. It's not like you completely backed out.
I didn't completely back out.
Okay.
I did not back out. I took a break out of the gang because it was, like I said, it was a nice one. It was terrifying. I didn't know what was coming next. I really didn't know because in school he was like a twin brother to me. We sleep together, eat together, go to classes together. So if he could get shot, even though he was a little bit more violent than me, because I'm not really, really violent, but yes, I can always get violent when the need arises. I can always get violent, but he was more violent. He was aggressive. He never tolerated a lot of things, and he never let things just slide by. You try to talk shit, he talks back. Try to act funny, he gives it back to you. He was very forward. He was that kind of person. So I took a break. I didn't back out of the gang. That's I'm speaking of then. Or do you mean even up until now?
We're getting there.
Okay.
Okay. So you took a break. Obviously, at some point, your break ended. You went back.
Yeah, the break wasn't official.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm
with you.
So, would you say that was the beginning of a downward spiral, or did any other thing happen after that?
Yeah, a whole lot of things happened.
Give us one or two.
Yes, a whole lot of things happened after that. Those kind of incidences happened a lot after then too. A lot of people getting shot, getting chopped by machetes, axes, and stuff like that.
Did you
So
ever witness any of those things?
yes, I
Can you
did.
give us
I
a
did. I did. I did. Mostly in parties, you know.
Can you tell
Where
us just one story or two of something
okay,
you witnessed?
okay. Another story. Yeah. The other thing I witnessed was also similar to this kind of thing. It's just it keeps going in circles. So it was this day at some club around in Makodi. You know, it was in the evening. It was after the matriculation of new students. That's when it happens mostly. When new students come to school, they are being canvassed by different gangs. So everybody brings their new gang members out, maybe to have drinks or like a continuous celebration. So we were somewhere, having drinks and stuff. So um, you know, it was a carried over beef. So it was more like, oh, I see you now. So let me give it to you back just now. You know. Yeah. So this guy now walked up and said, "Can I use those kind of languages?" Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that guy just walked up and like, "You fuck up, but today your cup don't full."
Was he talking to you?
He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to the next guy. I barely had those kind of confrontations, but I did have my own confrontation too. I'll also get to that shortly. Yeah, my confrontation was cheap, funny, but deadly. Yeah, so now the guy now said, "You fuck up, but today your cup don't full." As if to say, "Oh, guy, you've messed up a lot. Now I have to get this over with." So the guy like, "Do your worst. What do you feel?" Do the next thing we realized that was a gunshot. Immediately he pulled out his gun right there on the table and shot the guy who was sitting just right, one, two, just like 2 seats away from me. But you see, Africans, we have that Odeshi thing going on. He was shot. He got hurt, but he was supposed to die from the gunshot. But he only injured. He didn't die, but he was shot, and it escalated from there. Where that guy now had to run back to the car we came with. The car I was seated in. I didn't know the equipment that were that much. Not like I don't know that we carry equipment on stuff. But he brought out a very big axe, and a machete. He didn't even touch his gun, and then rushed up to the guy and stuff, and they chopped him right there, and then the fight. His other. Fuck these people. Why didn't they do this to you?
Let's keep going.
Yeah, so without the lights?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they chopped him off, and right there and then he was bleeding, and just because of the previous gunshot, and a police checkpoint wasn't too far away, so the cops intervened. I don't think that very particular guy died at the spot, but I think he lost it, in the hospital. So that was another terrifying one, and all of those things amounted, even up until the one I faced myself, where I was sitting down in the law park in school, and one of the rivals was my school father in secondary school. That's how I wasn't shot. That's how I wasn't killed. That's how I was saved, sort of, somehow. So, but this is the story. Sitting down, they came behind me. Like 4, 5 of them. And I realized that amongst all of them, like 3 were not, students in our school. They were externals. They came from somewhere else, wherever they came from, you know. So now they now came, and now and I was like one of the smallest amongst the gang then. So the guy now came directly to my face and said, "You will never kill you because you're a small boy, but your time they come." That was another moment in my life that was so terrifying, and the whole thing summed up to me like, oh, this thing is really becoming realer and getting more deeper. It was so terrifying. And now, while he was saying that, I was smoking cigarettes, so he now pulled the cigarette out of my mouth and dropped it on the floor, stepped on it, took my drink, poured it away, told the girl I was sitting with to walk away from where I was seated, intimidated me, made sure I felt messed up, And then I now heard my school father's voice, like, "Leave that boy, come on, they go." And then I turned and I saw him. He saw me. He didn't talk to me. I didn't talk to him. That's how they all walked away. And that's how I wasn't hurt somehow. It was God first, but, yeah. That's how I wasn't hurt, and that's how they now walked away. That was one of the biggest confrontations I had. And I knew then that even at that moment, anything could have happened. It would have been also that when he came and pulled the cigarette out of my mouth, it could have also been that he would just pull out his gun and just do what he needed to do. Just shoot, because there was nobody at the law park. It was me, that girl, and the guy selling the mineral and the cigarette for us. And then, some guy selling suya, second camp and stuff. So I've seen that too. And then also, afterwards, after a very long time, my big brother, may his soul rest in peace, who also, I was just like 21 steps away from him when he was shot. I was just coming into the school, and he was in the school in first camp, and they just shot him, but he happened to grab the guy who shot him, and while he was shot, he grabbed the guy who shot him, and because he was some kind of nice guy, even people who were not gang members were on his side while he was shot, and he grabbed the guy. The other people rushed the guy who shot him, while the friends of the guy who shot him, which are the rivals to our gang, now ran away and left the one who was caught. That was the one who shot my big brother, not biological brother, but in the gang you always have big brothers too. So they caught him, and he was burnt right there and then again. So 2 people died in one moment, So I saw all of those. So all of those things amounted to why I had regrets, why I had second thoughts, and why I think that if I must say to anyone who is listening right now as I speak, I don't want to get too emotional, but like whoever is watching, whoever is listening, ganging, there's no salary to it, there's no pension to it. There's no way of saying you're ganging carefully. You can't gang carefully. Some way, somehow, they'll come for you. If you are violent or not violent, the reason I am alive, I just want to say, is God, because I don't think it's because I was ganging but in the band. They have nothing to do with you ganging and being in the band, or ganging and being a preacher. They have nothing to do with that. Once you're in the gang, you're in the gang, and once it's time to count the scores, they don't care if you have never shot anybody, if you have never done anything bad. They don't want to know. All they know is you are in the gang, and when they come for you. And if they don't see you, they come for your next, your friend, whoever is next to you, whoever they can reach. So they have nothing to say. Okay, no, let's leave him now. He's a nice guy. He has never shot anyone. After all, he's an entertainer. Or no, he's a nice guy. He always hangs around and he doesn't do anything bad. So let's just let him go. They don't let anybody go. Ganging is ganging. Once you're in the gang, you're in the gang, and your life is on the line. So I don't think you can gang carefully.
Okay, just 2 more questions and we're done.
Okay.
So, number 1 is actually 3 more questions.
Okay.
Are you still ganged up? And why did you agree to this interview?
Well, like I said, I grew up ganging. I can't stop ganging. And you can never gang carefully, but I thank God for God because there's nothing God can't do. Now, I'm ganging in Christ as we speak. I'm ganging in Christ. I am not Jesus. I am not saying, but we are all striving towards perfection. Everyone has made a mistake before. Everyone has lapses here and there. People have done a lot of things they regret. I'm not saying exactly like regret being a gang, but I'm just saying that I am very sure that ganging doesn't pay you. Ganging doesn't take you to where you think it will take you. A whole lot of people think once you're ganging, maybe, you've become a big boy, no, and stuff. You're so untouchable. Once you're ganging, your life is already on the line. There's no saying, this and that. So, speaking of if I'm still ganging, yes, I'm still ganging, but I'm now ganging in Christ. As if to say.
Why is it affiliated with your old gang?
Sorry?
Why is it affiliated with your old gang?
Oh, right now as we speak?
Yeah.
You can't completely say. I can't completely say yes. And I can't completely say no. Why is because a lot of people will never, ever, ever, first and foremost, want to say, yeah, stop ganging. So for a lot of people, I'm still ganging as long as they are concerned. So that's on that. That's on the part of saying, he's still ganging. And then saying no, I'm not ganging, is that I am not ganging. You understand? I am not ganging. And I cannot say, don't come to my house because I am not ganging.
Right, moment of truth.
Yeah.
So, in your time in this gang, what's some of the worst things you've had to do for your gang that, looking back now, you would say you're not too proud of? What's some of the... And by that, if you've killed somebody, even if you didn't kill, if you're there, if you witness your gang kill people, because we've heard of gang wars. And so what's one of the worst things you'd say you've witnessed or you were part of during your time with these guys?
Okay, I've been a part of beating up someone so badly that he should have died, and maybe probably because I wasn't violent enough to stand to watch him die. I had to leave. And probably ganging with them, carrying maybe 1 or 2 things around for them to, maybe guns, maybe knives, maybe machetes, axes or stuff. Yeah, I did all of those, and then also there are times when, when you have to be a part of financing for armories, you get me? So if you have not killed physically, but you've been able to donate some money for armories, or you drove a car to the point where someone is killed.
Have you driven a car?
No, I've not driven them. I'm just giving instances, but I have financed.
Right.
I've once in a while, okay, we need armories, man. Look, this niggas be coming up on us and everything, boy, and stuff. So look, we need to get this, we need to get that, And that was just because as a result of the whole thing getting heated up. I know if I don't get to, in the whole thing, if I don't get to do, they will do and they will come for me. So as the nature of the whole gang thing is, I had to do that. I had to do what I had to do. So those are one of those things. But I never pointed the gun at someone to shoot and kill, that kind of thing. I never killed anyone in the gang. I'm not trying to be holy, but if I had the chance to, even being a gang member or not, if you fuck with me to some large extent and I'm not happy about it, I don't know to the extent I might go, but I know that I'm man enough to be able to, to shoot. I don't know if you're going to die, but I know that I'm man enough. I know I have the heart. It's just that I have the fear of God also, aside being a gang member. But trust me, man, I'm not to be underrated as well. So I know that I have contributed one way or the other. So killing is killing. Maybe not me physically going to kill, but I mean, if you have contributed some way or the other, I mean, you are an accomplice.
So how would you, in your opinion, how do you think this has affected your life up till today?
Yeah, well,
all these affiliations, and how do you think it detracted you? What do you think that has done for you?
What do I think?
How has this affected you, who you are today? Being a member generally,
being a member,
affiliating, playing the roles you played, seeing the things you've seen, witnessing the things
being
you've
who I
witnessed.
was in the gang, rolling in and out of the gang.
Right.
Yeah.
What has that done to you today? What kind of person has that made you today?
Yes, that has not made me anybody more different than I am, apart from the fact that when those regrets come rushing at certain moments and instances where I start to remember things that have happened, because I have a mind of my own. There's a way I have this little mind control. I try my little best to have a mind control by His grace. Else, it has not made me change from who I was to anybody else. I have always been me. I've always been that guy that I hate being fucked with, and I hate fucking with people too. And I give people long ropes, in life. I had to apply my own self-orientation into the general orientation of the gang, which is also paramount, is what a lot of people don't know. They always go just by the orientation of, the whole gang, so they get a lot of things wrong. So it hasn't affected me by changing me, but I know that some type of way it has hardened me a little bit more than how hard I was, because being able to watch someone die in front of you is not a normal thing that, you should say it's normal. You don't just go out in front of your house and see people die. So it has hardened me. It has made me a little bit more harder than I was, and it has made me understand that there are a few things that should have never been done if you have the second chance, if you can take back the hands of time, on that part. It has kept a few regrets at the back of my mind all the time. When I think of it, I'm like, oh my God, this shouldn't have been done. If you give me a second chance again, it will never be done.
I've asked how many now?
2.
Okay. Some of the stories we hear is that there's drugs involved, there's
Definitely
higher spiritual things involved. Did you ever get involved in things like that?
doing drugs was not because of gang. To me, doing drugs was not gang. Then speaking of those spiritual stuff, getting into the whole African or traditional thing called Odeshi, trying to get some spiritual powers where you violate gunshots and stuff. I never did those parts of the spiritual things of and all of that, because I grew up in a family where we fear God. So even while ganging, I never took our time to go and say, oh, I'm going to, because I've never been violent enough for me to want to have extra protection, as though I know anything can happen anytime. I know anything can happen anytime. But I never took our time to say, I'm going to go and get extra power because I know that anything can happen. Oh, so I must go and arrange in case they come and shoot so that it won't enter. It will be Odeshi and all of that. I never really did that. I never did that. The only one time I tried something like that was in a general meeting we had where we heard that our rivals are going to turn up on that night. Oh no, if you don't do this, this is that. If you don't that, this is this. And they brought all those little concussions here and there, excuse me, forcing everyone to, get involved in it. And they brought raw yam and palm oil. So all you had to do was, after the whole thing, you just dip it. This is an African tradition, because my gang be all about Africanism and stuff, So they practice Africanism, they practice Blackism, and stuff. So dip the yam in the palm oil, and as you leave, you throw it behind you, and you never turn your back. So
what does that do? What is that supposed to do?
well, that's supposed to, according to the whole thing, like it's protection. That's according to them,
Finally.
Yeah.
What will you tell 12-year-old Chris, or I don't know, the day you decided to get involved? Today, if you're looking him right in the face, what's the one thing you'll tell him?
Damn. I tell him, grow up as a child of God. Have the fear of God. Because the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, as the Bible says, as a Christian. And wisdom is profitable to direct. Everything else would have, because you're saying if, because growing up without the full fear of God, even as growing up from, a Christian family, even from growing up, you never have the fear of God, but you're growing up from a Christian family, there are certain things I know that I have to do, you're just being religious and stuff, but you on your own, you never really had the fear of God. If I really had the fear of God, like how I was supposed to, then I wouldn't have in the first place joined the gang. So, I'll tell Chris, grow up to fear God, love God, grow up to go to school, grow up, don't do drugs, grow up and be a good person, grow up and be a mentor to other people. Don't let other people look at you like a threat. Don't let other people look at you like, oh man, he's coming, that kind of thing. Well, even as much as I was never looked at as he's coming, but they knew I was part of the gang, so they knew me coming means they are coming, so.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.
There you have it.
All right.